My name is Rhea Parham. The video you are about to see is about a mother support group that is part of the People with AIDS Coalition of New York. In December of 1989, my son Adam Balzano told me he was HIV positive. I was devastated. I knew I needed help. That is how I came to be a member of the Mother Support Group. All the women in this group are mothers of adult children who are HIV infected, have AIDS, or have died of AIDS complications. Adam got to know and admire the women in this group and wanted very much to document the strength, love, and knowledge that we shared. As a New York University film student, he was able to do this. He wanted this film to be about the mothers, not about himself and his illness. He began filming in October of '92 at the Names Project AIDS Memorial Quilt in Washington, D.C. Many of the mothers had gone there to turn in the panels they had made in honor of their children that had died. I went along to lend support to them and to Adam. 5 months later, March 15th, 1993, my son Adam died.
I feel very sad, and I feel like I'm at a giant funeral. And funerals are sad.
It's not easy, and we have to do something about AIDS. One way or the other, we have to fight. Because sometimes you say, well, it's not going to harm me, but I have 3 already in my family, and God knows how many more.
His death was peaceful. If I would have been there, I won't let him go the same way I don't want to let go my quilt.
There's a group of us here from the PWAC Coalition in New York, the Mothers Group, and we have support group meetings that have helped all of us try to get through this and be able to help our kids better. So there's a tremendous bonding between all these mothers. It's a very, very special thing. I wish the country had more because we need it so badly. We're really the only ones that can understand each other's pain. People can be understanding and try to be. Some really don't care. Some don't want to even be near us. Some of the closest people run the furthest away, and some of those you least expect to come through for you. But between us, we share each other's pain.
I thought I planned everything, and everything's just falling by the wayside. We're out of batteries. We have no microphones. We had rain. I didn't sleep last night.
Barbara, it's nice having you here, and I'm glad you could do this videotape. I'm curious how you became involved in the PWA Coalition Mother Support Group and how you became a facilitator of the Upstairs Bereavement Group.
My son was diagnosed in 1985, and I'm really not sure when. I saw, I think it may have been in the PWA magazine. It may have been in '86, or because I wasn't ready to go to any kind of a group. I was very much thought that I was going to beat this thing. And then my son died in 1988. And again, I was in contact with the mothers, and when they were ready for a bereavement group, they asked me to facilitate it. And I agreed.
Could you explain the differences between the downstairs and the upstairs? And I know it's the death of a child, but how that came to be, how the group decided that it was best to have 2 separate groups.
The downstairs group lives with hope, and the focus is on the child and what they can do to help their child. The upstairs group has lost that hope, and they need to deal with their own feelings about the loss. So the focus of the 2 groups is completely different, and the needs of the people in the group are different. And they cannot be addressed in the same group. You know, the downstairs support group cannot listen to the pain. And the people who have suffered the loss cannot listen to the hope.
I have lost my child to AIDS, and that AIDS is a very important, not only political, national, but personal issue.
It's like being a veteran.
Right.
I mean, it was like being a veteran of the war of AIDS.
We are veterans.
We are
exactly.
veterans. And those veterans stay together because they've had this war experience.
The same experience.
They've had the same experience. They know how it was to be in the trenches.
So it's the experience that draws us closer and
Absolutely.
separates us at the
right.
same
Now,
time.
if I could return to the world I was in before, that would accept me the way the mothers accepted me and would understand me in that way, maybe I wouldn't even need the mothers group. I don't know. But because they don't, I rush back to my source of being emotionally nourished and replenished in some
it's
way.
what Blanche had said. They validate. The mothers
Right.
validate the experience.
Absolutely,
they
yes.
validate
We've been
you, and they
witnesses for
validate
each other.
Right.
We've been witnesses
Right, yes.
for each other. You visited me in the hospital.
Right.
You've seen me with Brian. You've all been a part of my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I can look to you and I know that you know.
Right.
Because
We
you've
were
seen.
there. We were
And you were there.
We were witnesses.
We were witnesses for you, and you were witnesses for us, and
Right.
we know what we've seen.
And yet other mothers come into the group who have not been in the hospital with you, who have
Right.
not seen it, and yet you feel the same way
It's
toward
still a
them.
shared experience.
Well, some mothers can't face that hospital group after they've been through it themselves. It's just too hard for them. For example, when Beverly's daughter was dying and I had to go back to University Hospital, it was very hard for me. I pushed myself, but I would much rather have not gone, so I can understand that.
No, but I'm talking about even
Yeah.
new mothers that come in that have not
haven't
known you
personally
before.
have known me, but they've known the war.
Yeah.
They've had.
And
we
so-
weren't all in the same unit, possibly,
Right.
but we're in the same war.
So that experience
And that experience is what
is
what-
enough to
Right.
bond you together.
Right, yeah.
Florence, I'd like you to share with us how you became active in the Mother Support Group.
Well, that goes back about 5 years now. It was at the time that I learned that both my son and his lover were, well, in those days they called it ARC, age-related complex, right. And like so many of the other mothers, I knew immediately that my life had changed. I became overwhelmed with fear and very, very upset by the news and began hollering and screaming for about 15 minutes. And then suddenly I pulled myself together and I said, okay, we got to get busy on this and there's work that has to be done. So a young friend of mine went over to the Gay Community Center and there was a flyer on the Mothers Group. And so immediately I called the people in charge. It was Frank Donnelly and Fran Herman at that time. And I learned where they meet. And I went over there and I met with them. And I walked into the group in a state of total terror and fear. And we held hands and I found myself closing my eyes and crying. And everybody was very silent. They had all been through this, but this was my first time. And then Dean was there, and she was talking about her son who was very sick. And I said, what's wrong with your son? What's happening? And she said, he's dying. And I just sat there, and I said, my God, why aren't we all screaming?
It's really special having you here today, that you flew in from California to be with your extended family. Could you tell us who you are and why you're here?
I'm Patricia Navarro. I live in Simi Valley, California. I guess indirectly I'm here now as a result of the change in my life. In March of 1990, my son, Raymond Navarro, was residing in New York City, and I got a phone call that he was in the hospital and he had an AIDS diagnosis. The mothers group was like, it was my selfish thing. It was something that was only for me, and it kind of forced me to focus on myself. Whereas the rest of the time I was focused on him, at times obsessed with his illness and with trying to make everything right, because that's what mothers do. And having the different mothers around really helped me to get out of myself and to get out of my situation, and it helped me to be able to give, so that in fact when the time came I was able to receive.
I think people don't know how to deal with pain.
Well, I think that's very true.
Yeah.
You know, people don't know how to deal with it. We're not taught how to deal with it. We're not exposed. It's a hidden thing.
But in this group, we've learned how to do it.
And it's also, because everyone is in different places in the group, it gives me a chance to hear where you are.
Right.
And
somehow to see where you might be going.
Exactly. And that was true of downstairs as well, because even downstairs our children were not in the same place.
Right.
And that gave us strength to go on and to be prepared for.
If we look at someone
build.
and say, well, you survived, that means I can survive. Exactly. It may be painful, but I can survive.
Well, but you know what the most... Now, I'm thinking one of the most important things that the group gave me during my child's illness was a place where I could come and say anything. Sometimes there were issues between myself and my son-in-law, my son's lover, that we refer to as our sons-in-law. I couldn't complain to anybody because here was another PWA. Who was I going to talk about? I mean, to me it was a place where I could come and kind of be a mother-in-law complaining about something and know that it was a place to be honest. A place to be honest. Even when we get angry with our children that are sick. Even when we, because you know, we could get angry with them too, and it was okay. But in our group, it was okay. But we wouldn't necessarily share that with somebody else.
And it's also the tolerance that we have for each other upstairs
and
as
accepting
well.
our anger.
And it's that accepting the anger, accepting the guilt. I mean, even the unreasoning and being able to listen to someone's unreasonable.
For example, when I was very angry with my daughter, we were having a very bad time. I was so mad at her, I can't tell you. When anybody tried to explain her to me, I choked them. I didn't want to talk to them. But all the mothers would sit there and listen. Yes, I know you have a right to be angry. She's terrible. She's awful. And it was like they knew, she'll get over it. she'll get over it.
Just give her some time here.
But let her go. It's okay. They humored me.
But I don't think it was humor.
But it's process.
It wasn't humor.
I don't think it was. I think that it was much more serious than that. It was, you know, and I said before, the word honest keeps coming up. You can say what you really mean.
Right.
People will listen to it. They won't run away. They won't be afraid.
And you don't have to worry about being attractive or nice.
And you don't have to worry about being judged.
But I still worry about getting fat.
And who is it easier to laugh with?
Right.
You know, and not only the AIDS issue, but I remember that in the hallway one time at the hospital, a woman coming up to me from the Midwest, who I had been there a while. In fact, I think this was my son's last visit, and she had just learned not only of her son's illness, but of her son's lifestyle. And she just, you know, came up to me and said, how can you walk around these halls laughing? And how can you be the way you are? And, you know, I tried to convince her that the past didn't matter. All that mattered was being there for him now. But that was easy for me to say. What I want to say is, in the group, we could share our fears, our anger, whatever feelings we had about lifestyle, whether it be gay lifestyle or a drug addicted lifestyle. And we could come in. Sometimes the issue wasn't AIDS that we talked about, but the issue was unresolved feelings that we had because we had never been in such a group of where we could be so honest about everything, including these unresolved issues. And even though we knew intellectually that we didn't have time to deal with that because this was the most important issue, we could come in with these other issues and we could discuss it because at least half the people in there could relate to us.
But you know, and that's what's so hard about making that transition from downstairs to upstairs, was that you could put your feelings, in a sense, in the back and deal with your child.
Because the child was there always as a focus.
Right. And while you could talk a lot about your relationship, it was ongoing. It was, and you didn't talk so much about who you were. You didn't talk about what you wanted. You didn't talk about how you felt in those terms. It was always in relation to.
Right.
And then it stops being in relation to, and that's, for me, was extremely difficult. And it is, you know, and it's still hard.
Hi, Blanche.
Hi, Adam.
I'd like you to discuss how you first came to the PWA Coalition group and what it was like the first day you were there.
Well, I found out through PWAC through a friend of mine who, he and I walked dogs together in Prospect Park. And he is a social worker at Methodist Hospital, and he told me about PWAC. And my first day there, I was scared out of my mind. I didn't know the first thing about AIDS. I didn't know anything about HIV. And I was terrified. And I saw all of these women, and I think the only thing I could do, and which is what I did do, was just cried. And they listened. And it was great.
Could you tell us about your son? I know he was very unique, and he was a drug user.
Yeah, my son Brian died July 7th. He was a drug user. And he was more than that. I mean, it's funny because a drug user just doesn't define him. He was funny, he was smart, he was sad, he was lonely, he was afraid. He was all of those things. And he was starting to put his life together the last 2 years. Part of it, he was very, very glad that I was with the Mothers Group. He thought it was terrific. And peripherally, I learned a lot, and then he learned a lot, and we both found doctors from that, and we both were able to talk about the disease and deal with it in a much better way. And he was getting his life together, and he was trying very hard to do it.
And I know he had a unique philosophy on the disease. What was that?
Well, he thought that he was going to try and make friends with death. He thought that he could learn to live with death, to walk with death, that, you know, side by side is the way he thought about it. And it wasn't going to get him. AIDS was just not going to get him. And in a sense, I don't know, he OD'd, and he was taken to the hospital, and 69 days later, he died. And in a sense, AIDS did get him, because his whole body collapsed.
And he was healthy until
he was healthy until he overdosed.
And then everything just hit him at once.
He had lost weight. He didn't have an OI. That he didn't have PCP or KS or any of that. But you could see that he lost muscle. He lost weight. The disease was certainly having an effect.
Right. And it just took over.
And it just took over.
Hi, Susan.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could share with us how you found the Mothers Group and how you were brought to the Mothers Group and how you became the facilitator of the downstairs group.
I had seen advertisements for the Mothers Group, and So I decided that as a family member of somebody who had died of AIDS, that I had a kind of particular take on what happens in families when AIDS comes to live with them. And so I contacted the person who was then the head of AIDS Family Service, which was sponsoring the mothers group at that time, and called her up and said that I wanted to spend some time talking with her about the program. And it was sort of serendipitous because she was at a point in time where she was ready to get a little bit more disconnected from the group. And I guess that was in July of 1990, and it's been almost 2.5 years now.
So you say they're very powerful.
Yeah.
What else can you say about them that is special? Why are they special to you? Are they a part of your life now?
They're an enormous part of my life. It feels like I've got an extended family, in a way. I feel like they're, most importantly, I look forward to every Tuesday night because I feel like they're my teachers, and that they teach me about life and living, and certainly also about death and dying, because that's a part of this experience. But each week I feel like I go there and I come away, I'm always drained because it's a lot of hard work. But I feel privileged that I have this kind of corner on the world where people are dealing with issues that are of immense pain. And very primitive, and that they're offering me the opportunity to participate with them in this way. So I feel like it's a privilege.
Our relationship is better than it's ever been. It's more open, it's more honest. But I'm petrified. Because as good as it is, I'm afraid when I'm not going to have it. And it scares the hell out of me. And I wish that there was something I could do to stop it.
Everybody wishes
to just put a hold on it.
They can do something. If there was a hole in the ground, to just open it up and put it in the ground and bury it.
The whole virus.
The whole virus.
That's such a great idea.
But,
Yes.
you know, what Rhea said is right. The disease has brought a lot of us closer together to our children than what we were before. And the relationship with me and James has gotten a lot better, and we became a lot closer.
I was wondering if you have a hard time hearing that. I mean, to think about sort of the positive sides of this. I keep thinking about how angry you are at this whole thing. Yeah.
I am.
And it's almost like you don't want to hear, anything positive about this at all, because it just takes away your rage, maybe.
Well, all I can think of is that I have a really dear friend in North Carolina. And once in a while when we talk, she says to me, "How are you doing?" or "What's going on?" And all I can say to her when I'm not in denial and I'm really dealing with things in the real, when it gets real, crystallized, my heart is breaking. Absolutely. I can feel it emotionally and psychologically. I almost feel it physically, that my heart is breaking. And I could give up some of, positive stuff that we talk about. If I could give up the prospect of losing my son and not having him in my life. It all goes to that one issue. We could talk about a lot of things, and it really goes to that one. I want him.
And also now you have him here.
Yes.
Right?
Well, in the West.
Huh?
in the West, far West.
I do, and I'm very grateful for that, and I treasure all the moments that we have together, and all of those good things, okay? And then the relationship that we have, yes, it's that seesaw I don't know. I could be sitting in an executive meeting, and from nowhere comes the thought, I'm sitting here making decisions about this company, and somewhere my son may be dying. You know, it's like, you know, excuse me, what did you say?
It's true. You never know when those thoughts hit.
Yeah. It's not from nowhere, though. Like
well,
says, we're always saying it's from
but
nowhere.
Anything could trigger it.
You know, right.
Anything could trigger it.
Nothing, right.
Yeah.
It's always in the back of your head.
So that's like when the phone starts ringing, you'd be saying, oh my God.
Right.
What is it? Oh, then it's a business call. Even a phone scares you. When I'm at work, the phone scares me. Who's going to call me and tell me what happens next?
I called Suzanne Answer yesterday, and she said the same thing. Well,
it's a scary feeling. Yeah. Very scary. You know, and you don't know what the emotion that's going to strike right then and there at that point when that phone rings. Or so, and you're in a distance. Oh God, it happened. And I don't want it to happen. I think I'm in denial for that, for it really starting to happen. When it's going to happen, how it's going to happen.
How does how does being here in the group help you sort of deal with that coming out of denial piece? You know,
it keeps my sanity with it. To know it's there.
Does it help you to get mile markers from other people's experiences, or is that too painful?
No, it helps me see it clearer. I get points from it, brownie points like little Girl Scouts. Learn a little bit more, you know. And if a miracle happens, I'll accept it.
How about the rest of you?
Well, sometimes I find it helpful, and sometimes I find it scary.
Sometimes you feel like you have to not come for a week or two.
Right. Because I leave sometimes feeling really depressed because of things that are going on with the other mothers. And I get scared, really scared. And sometimes I get a lot of help. The mothers are all helpful in learning things, but when you get the mothers that are upset and their sons are really sick, it's scary. I leave frightened sometimes.
It's hard to hold on to denial in the face of
that. And when someone comes in, Patricia and that Lady Jean, it's really, really scary. I get scared. And I don't want to go upstairs again. I don't ever want to go. So, it's scary. I can understand how she feels. I don't want to lose it either. I want to go first. Mothers are supposed to go first.
Mothers are supposed to go first.
And now you pray and you don't go first. You're going to be around to take care of it.
Take care of it.
That's it.
No, because I think when we say that God is punishing us, no, you're going to stay here and see it all. Because I say that sometimes too. And then when I don't leave here, I feel I'm being punished, that I have to watch everything that goes on. Because I always used to tell her to my mother, I'm going to die before she dies. That she's going to outlive everybody. And every time I say it, it's like God is punishing me. That I have to be here until it all ends. But why? That's what I keep telling myself. Why?
And on the other hand,
I want to see it.
On the other hand, you would not want to be here to take care of him either, right? I mean, there's almost that paradox there that you can't leave, and yet, you know, you wish you didn't have to see it.
You know, when you're caught up in the middle of really intense caregiving, you really do pluck those gems that you got at each meeting. And I never found a meeting that I went to that there wasn't one gem.
I'm amazed at how people remember, how, you know, will kind of talk about, like you just did, you know, that you remember that there was a mother who said something in a meeting. You know, it's just that it has... And I kind of forget that people take so much away from it.
I thought of so much like a Florence standing up to the security guard at Columbia Presbyterian and telling him, arrest me. and we've used that now ourselves, and really been effective. But
you and Iris was in the hospital, right?
We never would have had the courage to do that, but Florence taught us, and they remember that night that Iris died?
Absolutely, you did
We said, and the security said, but we are the police. I said, call the police.
Dean said, call the police. He said, I am the police.
I said, but
I'm
we're not leaving.
And we didn't. I mean, they had to call a conference. They called people in to talk to us. We didn't leave.
And it was all about whether 4 people were going to stay or 2.
Yeah.
And what the hell difference does that make?
Right.
And I said to them, look, I've lost my son to AIDS, and this mother has a son with AIDS, and this mother lost her son. We're not leaving. We're not leaving this mother alone tonight.
Hi, Joanne. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, Adam. How are you?
I'm okay. We have a couple of questions. We'd like to know how you got involved. We have a couple of questions for you, Joanne. We'd like to know how you got involved with the PWA Coalition Mothers Support Group.
Well, how I got involved with the Mothers Group, James was sick and he was in St. Vincent's, and I didn't know what to do, so I spoke to a psychologist on my job, and he mentioned some people's names in St. Vincent's. So he told me to ask for a social worker, and I asked for a social worker and mentioned the names that he told me, and they got the name Florence Rush, and they called her, and they told her I was on my way around the corner, and it happened to be on a Tuesday. And I went around the corner, and I introduced myself, and I sat in the group that night, and I've been going ever since.
What do you think of it?
At first I was kind of scared, and I was leery about sitting there, expressing my feelings the way I felt. And the next time I went, I felt a little bit more relaxed to stay there and to talk about my son.
What do you think of the other mothers in the group?
The other mothers truly gave me inspiration, because I didn't think there was another person in this world that was going through the same shit I was going through at that moment. I didn't think nobody cared. But that group showed me differently, that there is women, mothers, that care about their children.
Were you always able to say, this is my son James, he has AIDS? With people? I mean, was that something you were always able to do?
Well, when he got sick, no. It was hard for me to say when he got sick.
About the rest of you? Did you go through this process? I mean...
Oh, I still go through it.
Still go through it.
But I mean, I don't think you ever make peace with it. I don't think you can, and I think you fool yourself also. You try to forget about it, and they find, there's a cure around the corner, and you really walk a tightrope between believing and denying, and you really have to walk that tightrope, because. I didn't quite answer your question, but
I think the kids have a lot to do with it.
What?
They don't want it known. I know in the beginning, Darryl didn't want anybody to know, so it was something that I had to keep bottled up inside of me.
How did that change?
Well, in the beginning, I told him that I would honor the way he felt, but there were certain people that had to know, meaning his grandmother or my sister, because it's only me and my sister. Mainly because at that time he had lost so much weight. So I said, they're gonna see you and they're gonna think whatever. I think it's better if I let them know. And he said, all right. Nobody else. I said, well, I wouldn't go and say anything to your friends.
The year he told me he was sick, it was like a stab in the back. And I said, oh my God. what the hell is going on? And I didn't understand the disease. But I heard a lot about people dying from AIDS. And I never really got into it. But by him telling me he was sick, and the first episode that I went through with him, it made me realize that this isn't a joke. This isn't something that you can take a magic wand and make it go away. This is really happening.
It's happening and it's devastating. It devastates you when you do hear it. And I mean, as far as talking to people and letting people know, I think there are stages to it. I mean, initially, when Adam told me, he didn't want anybody to know. But I said that there were people I had to tell for me, because it wasn't something I could hold on to by myself. I knew I needed to talk about it. I immediately called GMHC and found this group, because I knew I needed a place to come. I think it changes as the disease progresses. It changes with their comfort level with it, not so much ours, because there's more mothers that I think are more open and want to participate in whatever is out there, but
they're held back.
They're held back,
because
the kids are saying no, because they have sections of people that don't know. I mean, there's still people in Adam's life that don't know, and he's had full-blown AIDS for 3 years.
But even you hate to tell people who love you and who would accept it, because they, you have to cope with their pain, right. and they're feeling really very sorry for you, and I feel I have to tell many people, and maybe for me it's easier because David's out on the West Coast, but I have come to listen to myself when I tell somebody, and I tell that David's HIV positive, and the one would say, well, he has blonde hair. I mean, and I cannot really tell how much it hurts inside. When I tell people, I cut off my emotions because I just can't cope.
Feel that pain.
Yeah, and you have to, and you can't really collapse because you really have to support your child. You can't really show your pain and your despair and all that because you're sort of a partner, a mother, and like
caretaker.
I'm here today to fight for the rights for all gay people that have AIDS, and because of my son and because of all the other mothers in the group and their children.
My name is Connie Marzano. This is my husband, Felix. We're here to celebrate Gay Pride Day. We have 2 sons who are gay, whom we are very, very proud of. We lost one son to AIDS in September of '91. And we're here to also make a political statement to plead with our government to do more for AIDS research and to treat people with HIV infection compassionately.
My name is Beverly Rotter. Exactly 1 year ago, I had a daughter. Her name was Iris De La Cruz. She had a PID infection, and it was never even tested for AIDS. And she had to have a hysterectomy, and she's dead now, and she should not be dead. I'm walking, I think, in this gay parade to fight for women and women's issues, and that women are not being counted. Women's sicknesses are not even taken into consideration. Women are left behind. Women are dying. It's the gay community that helped my daughter and I when she first got diagnosed. I'm very active with the People with AIDS Coalition because she was active with them. She wrote for their newsline. She wrote a column for them. And they were good to her and they were good to me. And I'll do anything in the world for the gay community because they helped us and no one else in the world did.
it. I wanted to interview you both together because you have a very unique relationship. And the group has labeled you as Thelma and Louise. You seem to be inseparable. You call each other daily. You do everything together. How did this come to be?
We're related.
You're related. I see. How did you develop this relationship? How did you get so close?
We realized that we had had a past life relationship.
I'm sorry. You have to get closer, Chatham, because you have to make. No. You're scratching.
Oh, I scratched. I'm
You
sorry.
scratched.
Yeah. Nowhere near the.
I have a question for him, but I can't ask it now, right? It sounds like.
What's the question? That was so good. I was on.
We have a lot in common. We've done very similar things with our lives before AIDS, and I think that that's part of the reason that we clicked so much. It turned out that we knew the same people, for example, 20 years ago, although we never met. So
that we were friends with the same people at the same time 20 years ago, but never ran into each other.
Met. So
sometimes you just click with people. And it's got to do with your lifestyle, it's got to do with who you are, it's got to do with what you believe in. And like Blanche says, that we've had very similar relationships in our life, or non-relationships in our life.
similar kinds of people in our life.
We were single mothers also at similar times in our life. And those are the kinds of things that have brought us closer together.
What is your hope that this tape or this project will do for other mothers who are dealing with this illness, who don't know where to turn? What would you wish for?
I think I would wish...
As an educational tool, as a tool to show people that there are other mothers out there that are dealing with this?
I think that it'd be great if other women could see how strong they are. And if other women could, when they get together, understand how powerful that combination can be. And the communication can be so strong that, that we can truly help each other.
I think it's also to let women know that they're not alone. To mothers who have children that are HIV positive or that have AIDS, that they're not alone, that there are other mothers and other women out there who are there for them, who can help them. And to educate themselves about HIV, about AIDS, that there are things you could do. That would be my hope, that people learn. Mainly that they're not alone, because that's what this has done for me.
I stumbled in the darkness when I was all alone. But out of the shadows, a stranger's touch, and I can't remember means something so much. You're not alone now that we're here, but we're on the edge. There is nothing to fear. We'll be as strong as you need us to be. You're not alone. We'll always be near. You're not alone now that we're here.
We dedicate this video to all people living with HIV and AIDS, to those who have died in this AIDS pandemic, and to their caregivers.
Thanks. Cut. Cut. Okay. Cut. Cut. Cut.